Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a kids frock dress. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel or you're new to this channel, please click the subscribe button and also don't forget to click the bell so you get notified of new videos. So let's get into the video.
The first thing I do is to mark the top line. My fabric is folded into two already. So after marking the top line, which is where I'll be inserting most of my measurements, I'm going to be inserting my shoulder measurements first. All my measurements, I'm going to put them up on the screen. So after marking my shoulder measurements on the fabric on that line specifically, I'm going to add half an inch of sewing allowance. So after that, I'm going to insert my armhole measurement. I measure the armhole round of this child and I divided it by 2 and I got 7.25 inches. You can decide to add half an inch allowance to this measurement if you want, but I decided not to. So now the next thing I'm going to do is draw a line across, and then on that line I'm going to insert my shoulder measurement plus half an inch, which I marked earlier at the top, and then I'm going to square it across. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to insert my bust measurements on this line, and all round measurement should be divided by 4. So I'm going to insert my bust measurement, and then I'm going to add 1.5 inch of sewing allowance, sewing ease. So be careful, 1.5 inch of sewing ease, and I'm going to join the points. Now after this, of course, is to use my French curve to curve out the armhole. Now what I'm doing is for the front bodice. Now once I'm done with that, I now measure that shoulder measurement. Now instead of me to divide it using a calculator, I just divided my tape rule into 2 and then marked the folded part on the tape rule on the fabric. Very easy. And then that's the midpoint. That will be my neck width, and then for my neck depth you can use about 4 inches. So you mark that point. Now mark half an inch of shoulder slant and then draw a line across from the neck point all the way to the half an inch you mark down. So which is what I did. And then now for this neck width, I used a French curve earlier. You can decide to use your free hand to curve it out if you want it more open, and that was what I decided to go with at the end of the day. So now I'm going to mark my waist measurement from the shoulder point, which is 11 inches, and then I'm going to add 1 inch for joining at the top, at the bottom, mark it on both sides, and then I'm going to draw a line across. But before I draw that line across, I'm going to insert that waist measurement. Normally it's better you draw a line across and then insert the measurement. So what I did now was to mark the waist measurement divided by 4, and then I added 2 inches of allowance, half an inch for that and 1.5 inch for sewing allowance, and I marked that line across. So now I'm going to join my bust area to the waist, and then I'm going to cut my fabric out. So yeah, I'm all done with the front piece. So in order to get the back piece, I place the front piece on another fabric unfold. Now on that folded side, I mark out 1.5 inches for my zip allowance, and then I cut it out. Make sure you're using something to hold your fabric down. Now I'm going to mark 2 inches off of my for my neck depth, and then I'm going to curve that out. This is for the back because I want the back high up, and I remember earlier I said I used 4 inches for the front neck depth. and then I'm going to cut that out along with the shoulder slant, and then I'm going to cut my zip allowance open. So yeah, I'm all done with the bodice portion, but not yet. I'm going to insert my dart measurement. So in order for you to get your dart, is your nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. So for this child now, I marked that measurement. It's about 2.75. And then remember, my dart allowance that I gave earlier was 1/2 inch, so 0.25 on both sides. And then the dart height is about 3.5 inches, so I'm going to mark that point up as well, and then draw a straight line and then do my triangle dart, not as normal. So what I'll do is now extend this dart to the other point of the fabric. So now for me to have separated the front from the back, now I measured the armhole length and folded my tape rule into 2. Now I'm going to mark that folded part of tape rule on the fabric. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to take the armhole a little bit inside, and then I'm going to mark 0.25 inches inwards at that midpoint. And when I do that, I'm going to use my French curve from the top all the way to that 0.25 inches, then down to the side. This is because I want to take away excesses from the armhole. If it's for an adult, you can take in 1/2 inch allowance. This will actually help taking excesses at your armhole area. And then I'm done. I actually cut another fabric for lining from that same fabric as well. That's why I have 2 pieces on that there, and I do this only to the front piece, not the back piece. So now once I'm done with this, I have my line. I'm going to sew my darts, and then I press my darts. This is what I have at the end of the day. I have pinned the side of my fabric together for both the main fabric and for both the lining. So this is what I have at the end of the day, and I'm going to be sewing by my allowance. So this is my shoulder, this is the other lining. So now I'm just showing you what I did here. From this point, I joined the neckline. I've already joined the sides by the allowance, and I serged it. But I started sewing the neckline for both the lining and the main fabric. I placed it together. I started from the front piece first. I left the back portion out for both lining and fabric, and I sewed by 1/2 inch allowance from that point all the way to the other point for only the front piece. And once I do that, yeah, it's just the back piece. You just make sure that the shoulder joining are correct, aligning properly, and then I go ahead and do the back all the way to the zipper allowance, and then all the way down by 1/2 inch as well. So make sure you start with a back stitch. Now once I get to the zipper area, I pivot my fabric around my needle, and then I sew all the way down. So yeah, this is how it's going to look. I'm going to do that for the other side as well. So before you actually turn your fabric inside out, make sure you notch the edges so that the ends come out really nice, and you can use your scissors or a sharp object, not so sharp, to actually poke that edge out. So right, I'm using my scissors right here, and this actually helps me. So yeah, this is what I do on both sides. But before I'm going to do this, I'm just showing you how this is done. I make sure I top stitch the neckline area. I start 1 inch away from my zipper allowance. That makes it easier, and I fold my excess fabric towards my lining and top stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the initial seam. And I do that all the way from beginning to the end. So 1 1 inch away from your zipper allowance at the beginning and 1 inch away from your zipper allowance at the end. So it's very, very simple. Top stitching is quite easy, it's no biggie. So once I'm done with that, this actually helps to your neckline to stay in place without it shifting. So yeah, this is how it looks. Then you can press it so it lays nice and flat. So yeah, for the armhole area, I just folded it in by 1/2 inch allowance and then use my dressmaker pins to hold it down, and then I start sewing by 1/8 of an inch as well. This is actually an easier method for me, as it helps me to conceal the raw edges, go around very easily, and because this is a very small dress. So yeah, when I'm all done, it looks like this. I'm just going to iron that out so it looks nice. So what I did was to sew the edges of the dress at the waist area by 1/2 inch. So now for the skirt area, I folded my fabric diagonally. Now I'm going to mark a point about 17 inches all the way around in order for me to get the waist radius divided by 4. So that's exactly what I did. And then from that point, I'm going to mark the length of the skirt all the way down. Yeah, and then I'm going to cut it out. So the waist radius is inclusive of the sewing allowance. Please take note. And the waist radius, well, I put it up on the screen. So after doing that, I use it to cut the back, putting allowance for the same. So right now, I'm going to mark a point in the midpoint of my skirt for the front piece. And then I'm going to mark 1 inch all the way. This is because I'm going to be making pleats. The waist radius was in excess, so I'm going to be making pleats. Now I take a point where I have marked and I place it on another marked point. So this is what I'll be getting. The fold will be by 1/2 inch. So I do the same thing all the way around, but in opposite direction. So take one marked side. This is what you get at the end of the day. And then from that midpoint, I measured the length of the waist radius, or the waist measurement divided by 4. And then I do the same thing for the other side. So this is what you get at the end of the day. Something like this. And then you measure it round. But before I did that, I decided to take a pleat, a kissing pleat by 1/2 inch, sorry, by 0.25 inches in the middle, and then I measured again. So once you're satisfied with your measurement, making sure it is correlating with the measurement of the child or the person, you can go ahead and stitch. So I've stitched the 0.25 inches at midpoint. I'm going to now lay that flat and start sewing from that point by 0.25 inches all the way. You don't want to sew by 0.5 inches because 0.5 inches is the allowance needed to join the skirts to the bodice. So I sew by 0.25 inches all the way down, removing the pins as I go along, and I do the same thing for the other side as well. So I've actually done the pleats for both the front and the back piece. So this is what I have after stitching. And then the next thing I'm going to do now is to sew the other side, like I said earlier. So this is the front, that is the back. The back, you end up with 2 pieces. Now I notch the midpoint of the bodice. I'm going to take the front parts. Now from that, where that kissing pleat is, I'm going to sew it right side stitching from midpoint to side and midpoint to side. But while sewing, I did not sew from the beginning. I sewed about 1 inch away from the side seam allowance. Remember, I haven't joined the back piece to the front piece, and this is because I want to insert the belt. I'm inserting a belt to this dress. So once I'm done with that, I do the same thing for the back as well. Yeah, so that's the zip allowance, making sure I don't sew the side seam. And before I sew the side seam, now what I'm going to do is just align my fabric nice and flat, and then I'm going to take out the excesses at the side seam area. So I'll be sewing at that side. I'm so sorry, this footage is not so clear. So I sew all the way down. And then I'm going to cut off the excesses. Yeah, so that's it. So here is my belt. My belt is about 3 inches in width and about 24 inches in length. Sorry, about 20 inches in length. So what I did was to mark half an inch on both sides now, and then I do it diagonally all the way. So you, at the end of the day, you have 2 inches on one side, and then you have 3 inches on the other side. So your belt is not looking very straight. So after doing that, I've cut it out now. Then I'm going to sew a seam across all the way from top to bottom to the side. Yeah, by half an inch allowance. And once I'm done with that, I notch the edges so that I can turn it inside out and then poke it out nice and then iron it. So now I've created a hole in the side seam at the skirt part. So I'm going to insert my belt now from the inside. So right sides touching right sides of the skirt. So I'm going to insert it by half an inch allowance. Yeah, and then I'm going to seal that seam. So it's very easy, or it actually has been easy. And then once I do that, as you can see, my belt is staying put. I'm now going to close the bodice and the skirt part of the dress. So yeah, that's it guys for the belt, and this is what you have at the end of the day. So now I'm going to conceal the raw edges using my overlock machine. And then right now I've marked the point where I want my zipper to stop on the dress, and I'm going to sew from that point all the way to the bottom of the skirt part of the dress, or the bottom of the dress. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to get my zipper, and this is my zipper. I'm going to open it up. I've changed my zipper, my presser foot to normal zipper foot. Fold it by your zipper, not your exact zipper allowance. Like now, if my zipper allowance is 1 inch, I'm going to fold by 0.5 inches, and then the stitch line will be 0.25 inches away from the fold. So at the end of the day, 1 inch is taken in. I hope you understand that explanation. So I'm going to start stitching from the top all the way down to where I have marked earlier. And then once I get to that point, I'm going to now pivot my fabric, making sure I close my zipper first. I'm going to pivot my fabric around my needle, sew a straight line, and then once I get, if I want to overlap, I make sure I do the same thing. Remember the fold I mentioned earlier. If you want your fold to be by half an inch, fold by half an inch, and then sew by half an inch, so that at the end of the day you are taking 1 inch out. So I actually want this part to overlap to cover my zipper, so my zip doesn't show. That's why I'm using half an inch, not 0.75 inches I did earlier. And this is how it's going to look, nice and clean. This part is actually more difficult because I doubled the fabric. So now what I'm going to do is overlock the edge. Instead of folding it twice, I'm going to overlock the raw edge and then fold it once and sew. And that's it. My dress is all ready. So after sewing, I'm going to show you how it looks. And I'm going to just do some decorations with these flower petals right here, and yeah, we're all done. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye guys.